everyone. Welcome back to All Things Real Estate. I'm Terry LaJoy, your host with Keller Williams Coastal and Lakes and Mountains Realty. I'm here today with Sean, my co-host from Oak Hill Acquisitions, and we're going to talk about one of our recent deals today. So, Sean, tell us where you found this one first. We'll start there, and then we'll just work our way through.
Yeah, so this was another person that was in foreclosure. They had just came up on the trustee website. We ended up writing them direct mail piece, just handwritten note on a Friday night. They ended up calling us back on a Monday, met with them, kind of heard this whole situation and took it from there.
Okay. So what is the first step? So when you meet with somebody, let's start with what does that look like when you get that phone call and then you go and meet with them?
Yep. So
Talk through that.
First step is going to be understanding how they got into the situation, right? Because we're both problem solvers and we need to know how somebody got into the problem to reverse engineer the way out.
Right.
So we start there. How did you get into this situation? What have you done so far to try to resolve the situation? And what is your ultimate end goal? So that's typically what the first meeting will look like in a nutshell. Typically 30 minutes to sometimes an hour and a half, depending. But that's usually the first meeting.
And I know when I'm meeting with somebody like that, I'm like, okay, how did we get here? And then really identifying what is here. Because just because there's an auction scheduled doesn't mean like that's the whole story, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of other components that go into it where, you know, and you just talked about like, okay, where are you trying to get to? Like what are the solutions? And really, those conversations, it's not a simple, okay, well, where are you? What happened? Like, we're really digging, right, as to, you know, what got them here. And sometimes it's medical. A lot of times it's medical.
Yeah.
There's medical things. Sometimes it's a job loss or it's a death or, I mean, there's any number of things that get somebody to this point.
Absolutely.
So once you identify, okay, we're here, you're now sitting at the table with them, and what is the kind of the process you go through for, I'm going to say reverse engineering the way out, because that's the ultimate goal is to get them to a better place.
Yeah. And so I guess for more context to figure out the way out, we have to know everything. You know, like you said, how they got here, what prompted all of this? Is that issue resolved now or is it still continuing? What is their financial situation like? Are they working? Are they not working? How much money are they bringing in a month? Because all these things are going to play into what options we can realistically provide them based on what their outcome they're looking for. So where things kind of go from there is we start figuring out what's the end goal and then working back from there. So if the end goal is to keep the house, then we talk about reinstatement. You know, and so for folks that don't know what that is, reinstatement is just paying the back amount due plus the fees and whatnot that are tacked on. But you bring the loan current, everything comes to a halt and goes back to normal.
And you're talking the mortgage at this point.
Mortgage, yes, sorry. So we start there and we start by going down the checklist of, okay, do you know what your reinstatement is? Have you been in contact with your mortgage company or sometimes the trustee running the sale? They'll be able to get you that information. Okay, you know what the reinstatement amount is. Do you have that money on hand?
Which
most of the time,
no.
They don't. Can you borrow it from somebody? Can you tap into a retirement account? Is there a friend or family member that you can go about that? So for this gentleman, he didn't have the availability to reinstate the mortgage.
Right.
So we went down the second option, which is going to be looking at a loan modification. And there's a lot of factors that play into a loan modification. For me, primarily, the biggest one is going to be what does their income look like and are they actively working? Because most of the time, actually I'd say, yeah, almost all the time, if you are not actively working, you're not going to get approved for that modification because you are being underwritten for a new loan.
And you have to be able to make those payments.
Exactly. They want to see that you can actually perform on the new terms that they're going to give you. So we took a look at that, and typically what we see is they want to see at least you making 2.5 times what your monthly mortgage payment is going to be. So we took a look at that. he didn't qualify for that.
Okay.
Right. So we ran him through the third option, which is going to be a bankruptcy. Right. And we always tell folks, like, we are not financial advisors. If you decide to go down the bankruptcy route, you absolutely need to speak to an attorney who specializes in that. We can give you some of the highlights because we've been in so many of these situations, but you need to speak to an attorney.
Exactly.
And he did not want to go that road at all because he understood all the negative ramifications that come along with that. And then so we looked at the last two options, which are selling the house, right? And we kind of talked him through what that would look like. He had told us that he's been thinking about it for a while, didn't really know which way he was leaning, but once we got to that point, he kind of agreed that it made sense to sell the house, capitalize on the equity that he had in there so that he could get on to the next chapter with a completely fresh start. Because that's realistically what he was looking for, was to get out of the situation and be put in a better position overall.
Well, and I think a lot of people, once you've gone through that process and you've gotten to that point, most people at that point just want it behind them. I want to start over. I want to move forward. I don't want to deal with the bank anymore. I just want to move on with my life. And that was the option that you gave them. Yeah.
And a lot of the times when people get there, yes, they want it behind them, but there are those hard times where people want to cling on to the house, even though none of those options work for them.
Right.
And I think me and you do a very good job of, like, actually walking people through what the X's and O's of that look like. Like, what are the fine details of, like, hey, like, you could try keeping the house, but, like, this hasn't changed. You haven't fixed this issue yet. You haven't brought in more income. So if you somehow manage to stay in the house, it's a temporary solution, and most likely you're going to end up back in the same position, but you're going to owe more money. You're going to owe more interest, more fees, everything like that. So the net amount of money you're putting in your pocket, you're just giving that away essentially.
Exactly.
So I think it's important to caveat that, because there are a lot of times, me and you have both experienced it, where people really, really want to stay in the house. It's just not feasible at that point anymore. And we try to do a very thorough job of walking people through what it all looks like if that were to play out, so they understand, like, okay, like, it's not my best option to stay in, no matter what the ties are to the house.
Right.
And then I think, where are we going after that?
Well, once you got to that point, that's where you pulled me in.
Yes. So this gentleman wanted a very hands-off experience. We kind of joke around about it, giving them like the white glove experience, where they want this all done for them. They don't want to have to deal with anything. They want the top dollar that they can get for their property. And this gentleman was dealing with health issues and a bunch of other life stuff going on. So he wanted the problem solved, didn't want to deal with it himself. So that's where we can work to, we can promise him a number, and then we can work with you to get that listed on the market for top dollar and give them the time that they need in the property. Because, I mean, what would you say the average turnaround time or the average length of a transaction is from listing on market to probably closing?
It's usually 30 to 45 days.
Yeah. So it's giving them time instead of like cash offers like we talked about before. 14 days. Like it's not a lot of time for people. So 30 to 45, 60 days.
And cash offer's not your maximum value either.
No. Absolutely not. He would have walked away with far less in his pocket if he decided to go that route.
Right.
So we brought you in. And then I think it's probably best to turn it over to you to talk about kind of what that process looked like from there and how we worked together on that.
Right. Well, at that point, you brought me in. You had done a power of attorney because, again, the seller didn't want to deal with everything. And so he turned over the power of attorney to you for the sale of the house. And you brought me in as the listing agent. And so we went through, you had already done all the contracts and all of that. And so the first time I actually met the seller was at the house doing the photography. And I think that they were a little surprised at, you had told them what it was going to look like. But once I get there and, I start looking at things a little bit different because I'm on the marketing side now. And we had a lot of conversations around what that looked like and where things needed to be and how to set the house up and things like that. And went through, I was there for 2 hours. And I think he was a little surprised too that I said 2 hours. And we were about 5 minutes before the 2 hours that we were all walking out the door. And you were there for that. You don't go away just because you're like, oh, here's the real estate agent now. You were still there. And having conversations with them while I was doing what I needed to do. From there, and we've talked a little bit about this, the strategy of getting that home sold. And we underpriced the house. Because the mandate I had from you was sell it in a weekend. And that's what we did. And we did, so put the house on as a coming soon, and there was no showings until the open house on Saturday. We had an open house Saturday, Sunday, and for 2 hours each day at different times, which is also part of the strategy, not the same time both days. And once that got out there, because it had a whole week to sit where people could see it. And I think we had, I want to say about 40 groups that came through. And multiple offers. We had it sold within that first 48 hours. It was under contract. And, we got substantially over asking, which was great. But my whole thing for the property owner at that point is to make their life easy. And communication is huge. So I was on the phone with you and the property owner numerous times explaining, okay, this is what's going on. This is when people are coming for open house. This is when the appraiser's coming. This is what the house needs to look like. And really just walking them through that every step of the way and being there as a guide and a resource when they say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Does that impact this other thing over there? And being able to walk them through all of those questions and answer those questions for them so that they feel comfortable with the process. And they're, even though you had a power of attorney and you were handling all of the paperwork, it's still their home.
Of course.
And they still need to be involved and they still need to be in control of the decisions. And it just means that there's 3 people working together instead of 2. Is really what that comes down to.
And we had offered him relocation. He ended up getting it resolved himself, but that is something that we offer folks is, that's probably one of the biggest questions we face. Where am I going to go next? We can help out with that.
Exactly.
We offer it on a case-by-case basis. Some folks need a little bit more help than others, so we will offer that if the situation calls for it or it makes sense. And then I think another big thing to touch on for folks is there were some things that came up on the inspection report. And we took care of all of those. We paid for it out of pocket. We did everything and made sure that it met the requirements and we were able to convey title. And that was another expense that didn't come out of the homeowner's pocket. I think that's really, really big for folks is they don't take into account when they're in that situation, maybe they don't have the most amount of money. They don't have the ability to fix some things up. And so they need to walk away with top dollar, but they don't have the capital, so to speak, to invest in the house to get it to that point where they can walk away with top dollar. So that's where bringing in somebody like myself can be very beneficial because we take care of all that.
And there wasn't anything big on
it wasn't
the home
anything
inspection.
major.
It was little things, but there was a room that had wallpaper taken down and needed to be painted, and you guys took care of that. You took care of everything that showed up on the home inspection, which there wasn't a lot. There was only a couple things, but knowing that, okay, we're going to have that conversation with the property owner and say, okay, these are the things that came up. And I remember him saying to me, like, okay, so who takes care of this? And, you and I had already had the conversation. And so it feels good to be able to say, you know what, Oak Hill is taking care of that. And as you walk through this process, you can see the stress level notching down. Every step as you get closer to that closing, you see that stress level for that homeowner going down because their trust level is going up. They're seeing that any issues that are coming up are being handled. They're being kept in the loop. They're, part of this process. It's not like some investors will come in and they'll just like take over. And I've seen it where a homeowner has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And their anxiety level just keeps going up because they're not informed. And for me, communication is huge. I want to make sure that you and I are communicating. You're communicating with the seller. I'm communicating with the seller. And so everybody is on that same page throughout the whole process. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's huge, especially when you touched on the stress level just coming down and down and down. That's really what we aim for with every single, transaction that we do with these folks that are in these situations, is we look to bring that stress level down, because they've been fighting this so long in one way, shape, or another, or it's been on their mind for so long. Because the foreclosure process, you don't just get a notice saying, hey, your property's going to auction. There is months and months of late notices and stress accumulating, because you're getting the notices, and
you're getting the phone calls.
You're getting the notices, you're getting the phone calls, and nothing's changed. You don't know how you're going to deal with it. So it's just stress building and building. So that's what really, I think, fills both our cups up, is when we get to see that the stress lift off their shoulders and they start becoming a little bit more like themselves, and they start joking around, they start having fun with it. And it really makes a big, big impact. But I think being able to take over the process and have them so hands off allows that, because they're able to hand over control and just take a deep breath and know that, like, hey, this is gonna get resolved.
But they're still involved.
They're still involved, but they're involved they're kind of like, I guess the best way to describe it is they're kind of like the Monday morning like quarterback when you're looking at all the highlights and whatnot. They're able to be involved, but from an outside perspective, where they're like, okay, I know this is getting done. I'm being I'm being informed on everything that's going on, but I don't actually have to deal with it.
And I don't have to be the one making all the decisions and figuring it out.
Yeah.
The figuring it out piece, I think, is huge, because you and I both come from, what is the situation? Where are we trying to go? And what is the path in between? And figure that path out.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that most homeowners that are in this situation, they don't know the path in between or how to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, they get stuck.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, because they know there's this bad thing that's going to happen. They know they need to do something about it, but they don't know what they need to do is.
Right.
Right? So like, they're getting bombarded by all these different marketing strategies, right? And people are telling them, oh, you have to do this. Oh, you have to do that. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And they just don't know what to do. Like, it's information overload, because and
it's conflicting information.
It's conflicting information. And I think that's what really is the wonderful thing about our process when we sit down with folks, is we lay it all out there on the table. Like, here's every single option that you have. Yes, some of these options do not involve me. And that's okay, because you should know, you have the right to know all of your options and all the good that comes with each option and all the bad that comes with each option as well. And I think a really important thing to point out for folks, that if they're in this situation or they know somebody in this situation, is this gentleman, he even told us, he's like, everything you guys did, I 100% could have done myself. I didn't have the mental capacity to do it and take care of it all.
Yes.
And I think that's a big thing that folks, they don't take that into account, right? They understand, like, any person, if they're in this situation, can pick up their phone and call their local realtor, right? But they don't know how to get the sale postponed to buy them the time that they need. They don't know the right agent to call, because you need a agent that is experienced in this type of situation, and they don't know which steps they should be taking. So they can do it all, but like, they don't really know the roadmap to get there, so to speak.
In honesty, the roadmap is different for every person.
Yes.
And that's the other side of it, is one of the things that makes you and I different is we don't come in with a cookie cutter solution.
No.
We don't come in and say, this is what you need to do. It's, the solution gets created right in front of them based on their situation, their goals, their needs, and where they're going in the future. And that's a huge piece because not a lot of people don't have the ability to think through all of those processes or even know all the options. And there's a lot of people out there that will say, well, you have to do this, or this is go down this path. And the reality is there's multiple ways to get the job done.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get the job done, and people don't understand what the correct way is until they've had all those options explained to them. I've sat with many folks who have said, oh, I've talked to an attorney, this is the route that I should go. And then after we have an hour-long conversation, they're like, oh, I did not know about XYZ that was going to happen after the fact.
Right.
I definitely don't want to do this. And it's like, right, that's why people aren't taking the time to explain those things.
Right.
But they deserve to have every option explained to them in full detail because they need to be informed about what decision they're making.
Right, because it's their decision.
It's their decision. And coming back to what you had said about there's no cookie cutter solution for this stuff, I don't think I've done a single transaction in this space where it's been the same throughout. There have been times where we've had to get the property sold. Well, the property needed $10,000 worth of work to get them the money that they needed.
Right.
We came to the table with that. They weren't, I'm not going to say none, but most realtors are not going to be willing to, pay for this stuff to happen for their clients. And sometimes that's when you need a partner like us who knows the roadmap, has handled it before, and knows the solutions to get the auction stopped. And I think that's a big one, is we stopped this auction twice. Got it postponed so that we could get everything done in time. And I think that was probably the biggest value that we brought to the table in that aspect, is giving the time needed to run the play, so to speak.
Right. Well, and you and I talked before it even gets listed, what needs to be done first.
Yeah.
And so again, that's different in every house. And just in the last few minutes that we have, I want to kind of fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to the closing.
Yes.
And because of the strategies that we implemented, we got well over asking.
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot because you kind of did something that I don't know any other investor who's ever done it. You did something very special for this property owner in the 11th hour, just as we were getting ready to close. So I want you to talk briefly about that. But before you do, also, I want you to talk about the emotion that homeowner had sitting at the closing table with us and leaving that closing.
The emotions he had was obviously relief that this whole process was over, but he was incredibly grateful for everything that we had done. He was grateful for the new life that we had breathed into him, getting him to that next chapter. And he was very glad that he had decided to work with us. And it was just, he was so calm the entire time. He was very sure about what was happening, and he was just very glad at the end of all of that, I think he said it to us. He was like, I'm so thankful that you guys reached out to me, that you handled this all for me. I am so glad that I went with you guys.
Yep. He said the same to me.
Yeah. And I think that was fantastic. The thing that we did for him in the 11th hour, am I allowed to talk numbers on here? I
wouldn't talk numbers.
Okay.
Just
let's just say
let people know what you did, but we're not going to talk about numbers.
Okay. Let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, the homeowner was promised X amount of dollars, right? And we were getting X amount of dollars for our services. Because we got so much over asking for the property, that excess, based on how the agreement was structured, was supposed to come to us. We weren't contractually obligated to give the homeowner anything more than what he was promised, and to do anything more that we were obligated to do. And kind of at the 11th hour, we had been talking about it for a while because we felt like it was the right thing to do. We turned around and took a very large portion of what we were supposed to get and walk away with, and we gave it back to the homeowner. We went back and we put a substantial portion more in his pocket than what he was initially expecting.
Right.
And we've done that before for folks. And for us, it really just comes down to like, if the numbers are tight, right, then we'll give everybody will get what they were promised. But when good things happen like this and the house sells for so much more than what we were anticipating, many times, if not every time so far, we have gone back and put more money in the homeowner's pocket.
I know of at least 3 that we've done together that you have done that on, and it's not typical, it's not normal. And the fact that, you know, we have conversations around this all the time, very few people will deviate from their contract. They're like, nope, this is the contract. And there's a perception out there that, you know, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And to see somebody that's willing to go back and say, no, that is what the contract is, this is the right thing to do. Yeah.
Well, if I could close out with one thing, it's probably with Oak Hill Acquisitions, we are trying to change the stigma around investors. There's a very sleazy, bad stigma around investors, and we want to go back and change that to where investors are somebody that you can trust and get you out of a sticky situation.
And get you on the path to where you need to be.
Absolutely.
And that's what you and I do.
Every day.
Every day.
Yep.
So, Sean, thank you again. I love working through the transactions with you. It's fun. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back next week and we'll talk to you then.